Cornell. Wow. Agricultural productivity initiatives in Liberia, Sierra Leone, Rwanda, Sudan, Somalia, DRC, and Angola. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Joseph DeVries. Up next, he's a research director in Indaba Agricultural Policy Research Institute. He has research interests focusing on agricultural development issues in Africa, including agricultural technology and productivity, smallholder farm commercialization, homegrown medium and large-scale farmers, and food markets and policy. He has a PhD in agricultural economics from Michigan State University and a master's in agricultural economics from the University of Zimbabwe. Please welcome Dr. Anthony Chapoto. Up next, he received a master's degree and a PhD in agricultural economics from the University of Kiel in Germany. His awards include a doctorate degree honoris causa, whatever that is. Must be a big thing for you people, I'm sure. From the University of KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa, and induction as a fellow of the African Association of Agricultural Economics. He oversees the IFPRI's Institute's 2 regional offices for West and Central Africa in Dakar and Eastern and Southern Africa in Addis Ababa. Please welcome Dr. Usman Badian. Up next, he's a senior technical specialist agronomy, the Policy and Technical Advisory Division of the International Fund for Agricultural Development. He spent over 20 years experience living and working in East and Central Africa, where he worked in soil fertility management, research, and extension. Please welcome Dr. Robert Delve. Up next, she's a program officer in charge of capacity building at the Alliance for Green Revolution in Africa. She is overseeing the capacity building initiatives of Agrf, which aims at developing the skill sets and capabilities required to promote value chain-driven transformation of the smallholder-based agriculture in sub-Saharan Africa. She's a seed scientist and with a passion for working with smallholder farmers, and has over 30 publications in refereed journals, including book chapters in horticulture, seed science, and capacity building. Please welcome Dr. Rufaro Madakadze. Now you see all this is way above my pay grade, so to guide and moderate this very high-level panel, he is the University Foundation Professor of Agriculture, Food, and Resource Economics at Michigan State University. He has mentored dozens of young African professionals and played a major role in building MSU's partnerships with Africa. Over the past decade, he has received no less than 6 distinguished research excellence awards from various professional and academic organizations, including the 2009 Outstanding Article Award in Agricultural Economics. Please welcome your moderator for this session, Professor Thomas Jane. Prof, I'm going to get to you in a second. I think I have one more. Okay, and of course, David Amiao. David, where are you? David, you want me to introduce you again, or they know who you are? I mean, it's up to you, David, because, you know, this PhD thing is a little... Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. David Amiao. Good luck.
Wonderful, wonderful. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much, Jeff Koinange. You have a wonderful way of introducing. I think we need to get you for all of these functions. Yeah, wonderful. Anyway, it's an honor and a pleasure to be here this morning and to be asked to be the moderator of this session, which I hope and trust will be extremely illuminating for all of us. One of the major innovations and just things happening in this region that is so powerful is that over the next 20 years, there's going to be roughly 300 million young Africans hitting the job market in sub-Saharan Africa. 300 million young Africans. And by the most favorable projections, maybe 25, 30% of them are going to be able to find wage jobs. And this really puts the burden on agriculture to be a source of livelihood, viable employment, and growth in order to absorb this huge rising youth population that is sub-Saharan Africa. You might know that 62% of all of Africa's population right now is below the age of 25 years old. So this is going to be powering forward and affecting Africa in so many ways, and the success of agriculture is going to determine whether this region prospers and thrives or whether it faces severe challenges. So this is one of the underlying themes and challenges that is in our report, 2016 report. So I'm going to, just one other point to highlight here is that this report is very optimistic. Optimistic in the sense that there are, as our keynote address, Dr. Namonga has clarified, there's some major signs of optimism and reasons to be optimistic. Growth is occurring in Africa. Agricultural productivity growth has occurred in many countries, and where it has occurred, we've seen dramatic reductions in poverty. We've seen the most rapid shift of the labor force out of subsistence agriculture into non-farm sectors. So it may seem ironic, but it's not, that in areas where productivity growth has been the highest, that's where we see the most rapid transformation of the workforce out of farming and into non-farm. Because think about it, when millions of small farmers have more money in their pockets from productivity growth, what do they do with that money? They spend it on veterinary services for their animals. They spend it on corrugated iron roofing sheets for their homes, bricks, all manner of goods and services in the rural non-farm economy that stimulate growth in the non-farm, and then that acts as a magnet that pulls people out of smallholder agriculture into viable non-farm. And that's part of the transformation process. So that has a lot to do with the title of this book, of this 2016 report. And so I'd like to now turn to our august panelists and ask them a few questions and have them illuminate some of the parts of this book that I think will be interesting for you. So let me first start out with one of the architects and the fellow co-author of the entire report, Dr. Amaya. So tell us in a little more detail here, why agriculture transformation? What's the insight that comes from thinking about this term and applying it to Africa? And then most importantly, what comes out of this that governments need to take on board in order to stimulate the process? David.
Thank you, Tom. I think traveling over so many African countries over the past 5 years that I have been in Agrf, and seeing what farmers are doing in different localities and regions, seeing improvement in productivity, seeing improvement in the use of agriculture technology like seed and fertilizer and mechanization, seeing access, an innovative way of farmers accessing finance, you have nothing to doubt that progress is happening on this continent. So in brainstorming the topic to work on in this year African Agriculture Status Report, we took the theme Progress Towards Agriculture Transformation. And I think the challenge we put on ourselves and the authors here is let us look at what is being done right on the continent. Because agriculture transformation, as has been defined, is a shift from subsistence-oriented, farm-centered method of farming to more of commercialized, productive and off-farm activities. So we wanted to see that from Maputo, which is 2003, to Malabo, has there been any change? And that is the task that we put on ourselves. And as my fellow authors will talk about, you will see that, you know, in the areas of productivity, intensification, finance, digital technology, research and development, capacity building, there have been progress. We are not saying that Africans have got there. We have a far way to go. But until we are able to take stock of our accomplishments, we will not have a foundation to stand on to move for the future. So this report is a stock taking of what has been taking place since Maputo Declaration through Malabo, and then looking forward to 2030. And that is why we are focusing this report on progress towards agriculture transformation.
Okay, David, thank you for that. I think that cues up the next question, which I'd like to direct to my friend and colleague, Dr. Ousmane Badiane of IFPRI. In chapter 2 of this report, Dr. Badiane and others has documented the fact that countries that adopted their CAADP programs relatively early on in the process, those are the countries that have experienced the most sustained agricultural productivity growth. So there really is evidence to document this. So my question to you, Ousmane, how resilient, how sustainable is this? Is this a flash in the pan, or is this a durable, sustained growth process that Africa is experiencing?
All right, thank you, Tom. I wanted to apologize for coming a bit late and say that I don't take responsibility for anything that I say. I just came from the airport after a night-long trip. I'm really, really tired. That's directly here. But thank you for the question. I do believe that it is resilient, and here is why. You look back at the 50 years, 6 years of post-independence history of the continent. We have never had such a sustained period of strong growth, widely spread across so many countries. So something has changed fundamentally. We always had a Cote d'Ivoire or a Botswana or a Cameroon or whatever, but look at the map. It's all over the place. So something has changed, and therefore it is a movement. So I think it's, yes, it's going to have its challenges from time to time, like we had with the financial crisis, but I think it is resilient and can be sustained. However, just like it didn't happen by chance, it will not be sustained by change. Several things need to happen for that, and I'm just going to list some of them. Please. Right? First, these times are very different from the 80s when many of us started our career. You looked around, it was very hard to see something working, something positive happening. Now you look around, any country, any place has a success story. So the first thing to make sure that this can be sustained is to go back and look at what we did right and just scale up the success stories. It's a very easy place to start from for most countries. Okay? Often we don't take the time to do that, but that's important. Yeah. Second is agriculture has changed face in our economies. Yes, it's still rooted in smallholder agriculture, but the value chains are changing rapidly. The cassava, millet, maize, pulses value chains are something different from what they used to be. They're much longer, they're much more sophisticated. But that happens because there's a very strong private sector behind it. But also that happens and will have to be carried by a private sector. So the question now here is, how do you get to work with the private sector to make sure that they can continue that progress? Two more things, and I'll just stop there. I know time is running. The technology battle. You will see in some of our earlier reports that, yes, we have made quite a lot of progress. A lot of it came from adding more land into production. Yes, we have turned the page in terms of getting faster productivity growth, but it's nowhere where it needs to be. So we have to win the technology battles. How do you invest in the technology of tomorrow? the expertise of tomorrow, and the laboratories can do it. And finally, we have to transform the rural space for agriculture to become more competitive. That means investment in health, in social services, in infrastructure, and last and not least, vocational training to upgrade skills for the smallholder farmers.
Okay.
Thank you.
Usman, thank you. Okay, so you mentioned the private sector, and this harks back to the comment that our keynote speaker mentioned that, 20, 30, 40 years ago, the private sector was the enemy, and now the private sector is a part of the solution. So let me turn to Joe DeVries, who has been involved in input distribution and input issues for a long time. And I'd like to ask you, Joe, how does the private sector need to come in? And what do governments need to do in order to enable the private sector to be more effective in their job?
Thanks, Tom. I think a lot has been said about the private sector already, but really you can't emphasize enough at this stage the importance of African entrepreneurs. And I've had the pleasure of working with over 100, maybe 120 now, CEOs of African seed companies. And what they can do, the future they're able to envisage, in spite of the enormous challenges that they face, and then make that a reality for smallholder farmers is really incredible. And that now is spreading to the grain trading sector. Just recently, we traveled into Uganda, and Uganda, has been one of our big countries for growth and spread of improved seed and a bit of fertilizer as well, though not enough yet in Uganda. And we were just stunned to see the level of investment by grain traders, putting up million-dollar processing facilities and talking about the export market. So I feel like, we're really actually entering into a golden era of growth in African entrepreneurship in agriculture. But we have to keep in mind how much these people have to do and how difficult it can be. A seed company that wants to get its seed shown to a lot of farmers doesn't have a strong public sector extension system to rely on. In North America and in much of Asia, during their green revolutions, the extension system was strong. Now it's all falling to the private sector. So I don't think we should hold back in assisting them to do a sort of private sector-led extension model. And you ask, what can the governments do? Well, really get behind their private sector. And for a long time we saw this tension, government sort of fighting the emergence of a private sector. But we're seeing more and more now cases where government, say in the case of Zambia, is working closely with its private sector, and things have really accelerated. So, I think if we get down in the trenches with some of these grassroots entrepreneurs and help them to extend the area of coverage of their services, both in input markets and output markets, it's really the best work we can do.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you, Joe. I'd like to mention, just to build on what Joe said, that one of the things that I do with colleagues, African colleagues in the region, is to analyze large-scale surveys. So in many of these countries, their national statistical offices collect data on smallholder farmers, thousands of them, and we analyze them to detect changes that are going on. And one of the most salient changes that we've noticed in recent years is that 10 years ago, when you look at who smallholder farmers are selling to, most of their sales would be to very small assembly traders. These are people who might buy, 5 bags over here, 20 bags over here. They kind of aggregate up, and then they take it out of the rural areas and they sell it to a wholesaler in one of the district towns. But in recent years, we've seen some dramatic changes in the way that grain markets are organized. Most of the, and this comes from at least 3 countries in the region now, Kenya, Tanzania, and Zambia, What we're seeing is that most smallholder farmers are now selling to bigger traders who have now come into the market in a very big way. So the wholesalers are moving very deeply now into rural areas and sourcing maize and soybeans and other crops in ways that we did not see previously. And as a result of that, when you ask farmers, how far did you go from your farm to the point at which you sold your maize? Guess what the most common answer is nowadays? 0. Most farmers are selling their maize right on their farm to buyers. So it's a dramatic development that most of us would never have thought could have been possible before. Yeah. Okay, so let me now move to Dr. Anthony Chipoto. And Anthony, as Jeff Koinange said, is part of the Indaba Agricultural Policy Research Institute, which is one of the up-and-coming national think tanks in many of these countries. This is another major innovation from 20 years ago. Nowadays, we have local, homegrown think tanks, like Tegemeo here in Kenya. They're now developing all over the region. And Anthony is the research director for this national think tank in Zambia. So Anthony, I want to throw a question to you. Many people say, well, what's the future of smallholder farming in this environment now? We see a rise of emergent farmers, people with bigger farms, pulling in mechanization, as Dr. Namanga said. Where's the place for the millions and millions of people in this region who are still primarily engaged in smallholder farming? Talk about that, and where's the niche between the large scale, the medium scale, the emergent, and the small scale? Tell us how this all has to work together.
Thank you very much, Tom. Maybe let me begin by saying that the structure of the farming sector in Africa is changing. What we see in most African countries is that we have a rise of what we call emergent, homegrown African farmers who have land sizes ranging between 5 to 100 hectares. And I think a few years ago, I think there was a debate in terms of land grabs from large corporations, etc. But this group of farmers was hiding behind. It was under the radar. And what we see is that this group of farmers is energetic, they is educated, and they own much more land than the very small farmers plus the large-scale commercial farmers. So with this changing farming environment, what is the future of smallholder farmers, the ones that are under 5 hectares? I can say the future is bright. However, some may have to exit. Some may remain as subsistence farmers and be able to take opportunities that are being created by these emerging medium holder farmers who are using good technology, improved technology, who are able to access good finance to be able to produce for the market. Also, there are synergies between these emerging smallholder farmers and the much smaller farmers. You will find that the emerging farmers can provide mechanization services to these farmers. I think there's an example in Ghana where they have a nucleus farmer model. You know, the hub and spoke model where the medium-scale farmers, these are I'm talking of the indigenous, small, medium farmers. I'm not talking of the large commercial farmers. So these synergies, I think, will act as an engine for growth. What we need to see is a broad-based agricultural growth. Because we have 60% very small farmers, we cannot afford to ignore them. So we need to adopt the Asian style of development. So this is why I'm saying the future for a smallholder farmer is bright, The world is changing. Technology is improving. We see a lot of private sector investment coming in, and we will see us seizing the moment. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Anthony. This is such a positive message. We know, however, that it's not good to be totally complacent. We shouldn't be complacent. There are still huge challenges afoot. And one of the things that we practice at Michigan State University is that I ask my students, if you had one moment in an elevator with the Minister of Agriculture, if you just happened to be in the same elevator and he says, what do I do? What do I do? You have to practice your elevator speech. So I'm going to turn to Dr. Robert Delve and give him the opportunity to tell us if he had 1 minute with the Minister of Agriculture in the government of Tanzania, Rwanda, Kenya, whatever. What would be the challenge, the main challenges that you would say, this is what you really need to focus on? Robert.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think I need more than 1 minute, unfortunately, so let me see how I do.
It's a long elevator ride.
Okay. No, I think despite the successes we're seeing in many countries of increasing productivity and production, it's still driven in sub-Saharan Africa by extensification of production rather than productivity increases per se. And I think when you talk about the smaller farmers of 0 to 5 hectares, it's particularly a challenge of accessing the information and the inputs, the market, input and output markets they need to make those investments. So that's what the analysis is still showing. And I think there's 4 key areas of intervention where we can focus our resources to make that difference. And the first one is increasing the availability of agricultural technologies. Investment in research is still a major constraint in national systems, linking to the private sector companies, to the CG systems, to breed new varieties, to adapt and test varieties being developed by others. I think that is still one of the key areas for future investment. We talk a lot about Earth observation and improved targeting of technologies. I don't think we've used those enough to understand what are the opportunities in different agroecologies, the constraints to address, and how to focus and prioritize investments. Extension is by far the core of the challenge. Even if there is new availability of technologies, how do those get to the less connected, the more rural smallholder farmers, to be able to know what is out there and what's available and what are the changes they can make in their production system. I think linked to that, if I have my 1 minute, linked to that, for me, even as an agronomist, the biggest constraint still is access to finance, to make those investments. Nothing happens without money. You want to buy improved seed, you want to buy more fertilizer, you want to hire mechanization, you have to fund it from somewhere. And that generally is not coming from people's pockets. They need access to rural financial services to be able to make those investments. Those services need to be linked to the ability of the farmer to repay the loan. We need more seasonal products. We see that in Kenya and other countries, not short-term lending, but seasonal lending. I think linking to that, we don't do enough on savings-based lending, so that farmers actually have a resource base to support that lending program. If people borrow money, you need to protect your investment in that money. If you take a loan and you're in rain-fed agricultural systems, you don't have weather insurance, and as we've seen this last season, the massive drought in southern Africa, you're really in trouble. So linking livestock crop insurance to loan products to allow farmers to make those investments is another critical area. And the last one, which was mentioned in the opening comments, is security of tenure. Even if you're going to borrow money to invest in your agriculture, if you're not going to be on the land in the following year or two, you're still not going to be making that investment decision. It doesn't mean governments have to give everybody title deed, but it does mean they have to have different forms of land titling that give secure tenure for the longer period of time to allow people to develop their agricultural systems.
Great, thank you very much, Robert. Okay, so that cues us up to our last, but certainly not least panelist. When we talk about all of the things that are still necessary in the realm of extension, that's what you said, Robert, and finance and so forth, this really emphasizes the necessity of building the capacity of these systems, the national extension systems, national R&D systems, systems that are servicing the needs of smallholder farmers. And we're fortunate enough to have Rufaro Madakadze here, whose specialization is on capacity building issues. So I would like to ask Rufaro to identify for us what the major challenges are for these systems to develop so that smallholder farmers have the services and the knowledge and the know-how that they need to move forward. Rufaro, please.
Thank you very much. I think looking at system-wide, there are still a lot of challenges in terms of capacity. The first one is we have tended to focus either on the postgraduate training, develop the PhDs, the masters, but we haven't really looked at building the capacity of the people that are closer to the farmers. So what is needed now is to build systems that can train extension workers. There have been many extension workers in many countries, but the training has been very different. It's focused on production, not on the whole value chain. So we want to look at how do we train extension workers to use the ICT that is needed now, that is there now to reach more scale. We want to train extension workers to actually advise farmers on where to get finance, how to get finance, on how to handle their produce after harvest, where to get the markets, all those things. So an extension worker really needs to be a rural advisor who is wide, he has a bigger breadth of knowledge than what has been given now. We also have a lot of SMEs that are now serving and working with farmers. And a lot of these are mom and pop shops that are starting on grain handling, on post-harvest techniques, on seeds and inputs. A lot of these do not have the capacities to do business and to reach scale. So if we also build the capacity of those to be able to handle the business well, business skills, marketing skills, the technologies that they need to actually serve the farmers well, that is critical to do. Then we still need a lot of capacity in just technology generation. In Africa, we are saying we have trained a bit of people. Yesterday, we had a meeting of human and institutional capacity development with different institutions. Yes, there's some people trained. We haven't arrived. We are still talking 3 to 5 soil scientists per country. We are still talking a few breeders in a country. There are very few people who can actually speak to the issues of post-harvest technology. There are very few people who can speak to the issues of marketing and some of the things that hinder smallholder farmers. So those are some of the things that I can highlight now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rufaro. I think you have really starkly and correctly put the nature of the challenge for building human capacity in Africa, and that governments can do a lot by the way they spend on agriculture, extension systems, R&D, education, and so forth. So it seems to us that that's a key priority that comes out of the report. One other issue that has not been raised explicitly yet, but I'd like to give our panelists an opportunity to talk about this, is the question of soil infertility and land degradation. This is a huge problem, and there's going to be a session today or tomorrow on this issue, so would like to highlight that. But smallholder farmers, especially in areas that are densely populated, who are using their land every year, and it's very difficult to rely on the old system of fallowing and moving on to new land, because population now is growing so rapidly that this is just not feasible. So if smallholder farmers are increasingly being forced to farm the same plots year after year, and this raises challenges about how to maintain soil fertility. And as we know, fertilizer, inorganic fertilizer, the ability of inorganic fertilizer to really yield a payoff is going to depend on having adequate carbon and moisture and many other soil properties that get eroded out when smallholders are using the land time after time after time. So I would like to throw this question open to our panelists here. Would any of you like to kind of take a shot at what does government need to do in order to help smallholder farmers improve their ability to manage their soils? I think, Joe, would you be interested in that?
Yeah,
Okay.
but I'll put the accent back on fertilizer. I don't think we've done near enough yet to get adequate quantities of fertilizer through competitive markets to farmers. And there's huge opportunities now to do blending. Again, just like in the case of seed, we paired private seed companies up with national breeding institutes and say, hey, you guys can do a deal here. There's a new variety here. You're a seed company. You can make money selling this variety to farmers, and it worked. It can also work in the area of fertilizer now. I'm hoping that Agrf can help create or help to grow a number of SME fertilizer companies who are willing to work with soil scientists to do this testing and then design a customized fertilizer blend for that area. And when you put that together with the seed, you're going to go to the next level. And what that's going to do is create more biomass. First of all, it's going to create more yield, right? And that's what farmers need now, so that they can reinvest in their farms. Trying to reinvest in a farm where you're just pulling off subsistence yields doesn't work. You know, we've seen that through the decades of the past where the improved seed wasn't there and farmers weren't using fertilizer. But when farmers put that binary equation together, they'll get more biomass, they'll become more interested, and we see this happening already, in other follow-on improvements in their production systems, like conservation agriculture and even rotation. But I just feel like the next move, you know, now that we've got some improved seed out there, has really got to be a push for Africa's farmers to increase fertilizer use.
All right, thank you, Joe. I think you'll have broad support on that one. So we're going to, we're wrapping up here. I would like to give our panelists, or any one of our panelists, one last chance to say something that they couldn't get out at first. And Usman, I think you've indicated your interest.
Yes, I would. And it will tie very nicely with what Joe was just saying. You know, in order to have a vibrant seed sector or fertilizer sector, or have farmers invest in land, that investment has to pay off. Okay, they have to make money out of it. And that has a lot to do with the environment within which they're working. Okay? And the reason why I'm going to say this, at the beginning I said there are a few good things that we did that led to the recovery that we have seen over the last 10 years. And I want to single out one area. All of us here remember there were times where you could not move one bag of maize across district lines in many countries, right? We all remember times when a few selected cronies will get a license to import or to export a good. We remember times when nobody could sell fertilizers to farmers, or buy crops from farmers, or sell seeds to farmers. The state was doing it, or civil servants were doing it, and others. Right? So those things have gone away, create space for the private sector. The fact that the farmers you talked about now are selling right at farm gate is because there's been a thriving private sector and people investing their own money into that. Okay, so soil, land, productivity, post-harvest, all of those require private people to invest money in doing those kind of things. It's a system thing. And that has a lot to do with continuity, consistency, and coherence of the policy environment. I'm not saying this because I work for a policy research institute, but I'm saying this for one thing that I'm really, really convinced, and I love to say that very often and people laugh. We do know that good policies don't solve all your problems. But we know that bad policies are a problem for everything else you want to do, for fertilizers, for anything else. So I think one thing is important. Now that we have a new generation of leaders, fiscally stronger governments, the wisdom of not reversing the policy changes in the past that created the room for the private sector to do what they have done over the last 10 years and to be able to do what you just said is extremely important. So that's where CADEP has made a big difference, improving the way we do policy, evidence-based policy making, the review, the dialogue, the benchmarking. And this is a time to say thank you for the AUCN and PCA for leading that. And this is time to call upon the countries to redouble their efforts. They've raised expenditures by 87%, which is huge. They should continue doing that. They've improved policy practices. They have to continue doing that. Then the recovery will be sustained.
Great. Well, Usman, you might be jet-lagged, but I think you gave a very crystal clear picture of what needs to happen, so very good. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you will agree with me that has given some very interesting insights for us today. Can you join me in giving them a round of applause? Okay. Okay. All right. So I'd like to thank you all and call back our Master of Ceremonies, Jeff Koinange.
Thank you. Once again, round of applause to all my panelists, please. Doctor, and Professor. Is that lesser or more than doctor? Your tweets are coming in thick and fast, folks. I love it. Please use the hashtag Agrf 2016. Simon Carter was asking a question, actually. He asks, what can governments do to channel benefits of agricultural growth to women and youth to avoid displacing rural poverty to cities? Good question there, Simon. Keep tweeting, folks. Any questions? Oh, no, not to me, the doctors, not to me. Professor's a comedian now, is that what it is? So, folks, this is the moment we've all been waiting for, the official launch of the AASR report. For that, I would like to invite on stage Her Excellency Rhoda Peace Tumusime, Commissioner of Rural Economy and Agriculture, African Union. I'd like to invite Dr. Ibrahim Mayaki. I'd also like to invite Dr. A. Namanga Ngongi. And of course, my good friend, Dr. Mark Emiao. By the way, this report, copies of the report, as well as flash discs, will be available at the Agra exhibition booth as of this afternoon. But for now, if you want to go online, it's agrf.org/AASR 2016. But they will be available, flash discs, copies, the works. Commissioner. Doctor. Okay, so you're gonna have to stand up for this because there's press. Yeah, it's a moment. All right. Commissioner, you're gonna hold these books here, and then one of you is gonna slice it open. Oh, who's going to announce? Is it me? Oh, hey. All right. All right. Thank you. It is official. The Africa Agricultural Status Report has been launched. Thank you. Anyone want to say anything? Yes. Dr. Ngogi? keep it short.
Very short.
Yeah, thank you.
Following up from yes, advice, just to say that's a very precious book, but it's not, 1 month from now, it should not be like this. It should have been read and flipped through, handed over to young people to follow the future of Africa's agriculture. Thank you.
All right, folks, thank you very much. This officially ends this session right now. There's going to be a press conference next door. All you journalists next door in the media room, there's a press conference. Make a left, go to the end of the hall and go straight. You'll see signs. For the rest of you, coffee break. Lots of coffee, lots of tea. It's on the house. Thanks to Ambassador Saliwa Kutode. And continue on. Good luck with the rest of the sessions. We'll see you here later on. Thank you. God bless.